All right, welcome to another deep dive, and today we're doing things a little differently.
Oh,
Yeah, so instead of a whole stack of articles, we're going to try something else.
okay.
We're going to be looking at one single image.
Interesting.
It is. And get this, it's a furry golem.
A furry golem.
That's right, you heard that right. Apparently this thing is blowing up online. Well, our mission today is to try and figure out why.
Okay.
Like, what is it about this creature that's so captivating? We're going to go beyond just cool monster, though, and really try to understand the design choices that give this thing a real emotional punch.
You know, it really is amazing how just one image can get so many people talking. It just goes to show you the power of visual storytelling.
For sure. I mean, sometimes you don't even need words, right?
Sometimes you don't.
So, first impressions, that when I saw this thing, I was like, whoa, it's like a huggable Hulk or something. It's this crazy mix of power and softness. I don't know about you, but I was instantly hooked. What about you? What was your first reaction?
I think what struck me right away was how paradoxical it is. You can tell it's clearly built for strength.
Right.
You see the massive fists and that solid stance. But then there's this gentleness, especially in the face, like around the eyes.
Yeah.
They're almost drooping, and it makes you wonder about its story. What's going on there?
Yes. And the description we have goes into detail about the texture.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just furry rock monster, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's cool too.
Right.
But this is something else. They describe it as a visually complex blend of stone and fur.
I see.
And I can almost feel that weight and power, but also that softness of moss, growing between the cracks.
Yeah.
It's almost like nature is reclaiming this powerful being.
Uh-huh.
What do you make of that moss detail?
Well, it definitely adds to the age and history, doesn't it? It makes you think that this golem has been around for a long time, like maybe centuries even, becoming part of the environment. It also makes me wonder if the golem's power is somehow, connected to nature itself.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
And speaking of details, the face is where things get really interesting for me.
Okay.
The description actually calls it the most interesting part. And I got to agree. I mean, those sad eyes, almost world-weary eyes, that furrowed brow, you just don't expect to see that kind of expression on something so powerful. Makes you wonder, what has this thing seen? What's its story?
Exactly. That's where good design goes beyond just making something look cool, right?
Right.
It's about evoking emotions, making the viewer ask those questions.
Yeah.
It's not just a monster, it's a character with a past.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about the sad eyes and the moss, but we can't forget about those massive fists.
Yeah.
The description says it has this ready-to-smash stance, like it's built for pure strength. But then there's this detail about the fingers still having slight articulation, which makes me think there's some control there.
Uh-huh.
Like it's not just mindless brute force,
You're right. That's a great detail. It's almost like a sumo wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
Built for stability and power, but it also requires incredible skill and precision.
Right.
Those fingers suggest intelligence,
Yes.
strategy, not just smashing.
Totally. And then there's the color palette. It's mostly this vibrant green fur, which ties it back to nature. But then you've got those pops of purple with the gloves and the leg wraps.
Yeah.
So unexpected, but it just works. What do you think about that color choice?
Well, it's a really clever way to add visual interest and another layer of meaning. The green, it grounds the golem in the natural world,
Mm-hmm.
while that purple brings in a touch of the fantastical, almost like a classic comic book hero,
Right.
It's a color combination that immediately grabs your attention, too.
It does. It does. And let's not forget about the background. This isn't just a portrait on a blank canvas.
Right.
The golem's standing against this sunlit mountain range, vast and majestic, and it just adds to that epic feel.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not just some random monster. It belongs to a world. What do you think the background tells us about this character?
I think the background's crucial, actually. It tells us about the world this creature, inhabits, suggests scale, history, even a touch of myth. Like the background is giving us the first chapter of a story.
Yeah. And the golem's our main character, and I'm already hooked. I'm dying to know more. But you know what I'm really curious about? This image feels very familiar in a way. Like I've seen this style before. What do you think? Do you see any influences from other artists or art styles?
You're right. There's definitely something familiar about it. The image doesn't just exist in a vacuum.
Right.
It's clearly drawing inspiration from different sources, blending them together to create something unique. But we'll have to dive into that a bit later.
Ooh, a cliffhanger. All right, stay tuned, everyone, because we are just getting started. We're about to unpack the artistic influences behind this furry golem, and let me tell you, things are about to get really interesting. So before the break, we were talking about how this furry golem image feels kind of familiar, like we've seen this style before.
Right.
So what kind of artistic influences are we talking about?
Well, the description mentions three main influences, and it's pretty interesting mix. We've got Studio Ghibli, Pixar, and the Legend of Zelda series.
Okay.
Each one brings its own unique flavor to the design.
Studio Ghibli? Okay, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Those whimsical creatures, that connection to nature,
Hmm.
that blend of cuteness and power, it's all there.
Exactly. Think about the creatures in Princess Mononoke, for example.
Yeah.
There's that same sense of ancient wisdom, of being deeply connected to the natural world.
And Pixar, I'm not sure I'm seeing it. Pixar characters are usually so cartoony.
Okay.
How does this golem fit into that style?
That's a good point. It is a little bit more subtle.
Yeah,
But think about how Pixar creates characters that feel believable even when they're fantastical.
okay.
It's that stylized realism they're known for. They use these exaggerated proportions, expressions, but there's always a ground in real-world physics and anatomy. So even though our furry golem is made of stone and fur, the way the fur is rendered, the lighten, the overall proportions, it all feels very tangible.
I see.
Almost like you could reach out and touch it. That's classic Pixar.
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
Yeah.
It's not as in your face as, say, a Woody or Buzz Lightyear,
Right.
but that attention to detail, that sense of weight and texture, that's definitely there. What about Legend of Zelda, though? I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Think about the Gorons.
The Gorons.
Those rock-eaten creatures.
Oh, yeah.
They've been in Zelda games forever. They have that same earthy, ancient aesthetic,
Uh-huh.
that sense of being carved from the very landscape they inhabit. And there's tons of golems and guardians throughout the series, often made of stone and infused with magical power.
Okay, now I see it. That sense of ancient power,
Yeah.
the mystical connection to the earth. Definitely some Zelda energy there. But here's the thing. This furry golem doesn't feel like a copy of any of those styles.
Right.
Like it takes the best elements of each and mashes them together into something totally new.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how artists can draw inspiration from different sources, right?
Yeah.
And create something totally original. It's not just about imitation, it's about transformation. You can see the influences, but they're blended so seamlessly that it feels like its own distinct creation.
It's like taking your favorite ingredients and making a whole new dish. And
Exactly.
this one is delicious. No wonder people are going nuts for it.
Right.
Looking at this image, I keep coming back to the golem's expression, those sad eyes. What do you think they're trying to tell us?
Well, that's the beauty of a well-designed character, right?
Mhm.
It sparks our imagination, invites us to ask those questions, to fill in the blanks with our own interpretations. The image doesn't give us all the answers, but it gives us the building blocks to create our own stories.
So it's like the artist has given us a starting point, and then it's up to us to decide where the story goes.
Exactly. It's a collaboration between the artist and the viewer.
Uh-huh.
And that's what makes this so much more than just a cool picture. It's an invitation to participate,
Yeah.
to connect with the character on a deeper level.
Okay, so we've analyzed the design, the influences, the emotional impact, but I still have one big question. What is the story behind this furry golem?
Okay.
Who is this creature?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And the truth is, there's no right answer. The image doesn't tell us everything. It leaves room for our own imaginations to run wild.
So instead of giving us a complete story, it's given us the pieces,
Uh-huh.
the inspiration to create our own narratives. That's pretty cool.
It is, and that brings us to the heart of what makes this image so captivating. It's not just a cool monster, it's a doorway to a world of possibilities.
Okay, so let's try to step through that doorway. Listeners, imagine you're the ones telling this story. What would you say? Is this furry golem a gentle giant protecting a hidden village? A lost warrior searching for redemption? A misunderstood creature yearning for connection? What's your take?
The possibilities are endless, and that's the beauty of it. It's a reminder that even a single image can spark our creativity, make us think and feel and wonder.
So what have we learned today? What are the key takeaways from our deep dive into the furry golem?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that good design is about so much more than just making something look pretty. It's about storytelling, emotion, and sparking our imaginations. It's about understanding the choices an artist makes and how those choices impact us as viewers.
I completely agree. And sometimes those choices can turn a single image into something truly unforgettable, something that sticks with us long after we've looked away. Okay, so we spent all this time talking about this one image, but what does it all mean for us, the viewers? Why should we even care about the design choices behind a furry golem?
It's a great question, and it really goes beyond just this one image.
Right.
It's about recognizing that power of design to shape our perceptions, tell those stories without words, and make us feel things.
I think I see what you're saying. It's like once you start paying attention to these details, the texture, the colors, the composition, you can't unsee it, right?
Right.
You begin to appreciate all the thought and the artistry that goes into create these characters, even the ones that seem simple at first glance.
Exactly, like you've unlocked a secret code.
Yeah.
Once you understand the language of visual design, you can start to see the messages that are embedded in everything around us.
Hmm.
From movies and video games to advertising and even everyday objects, it's all designed with a purpose.
So it's like we're all becoming visual detectives, uncovering hidden messages in the world around us. That's kind of cool.
It is, and it makes you a more critical and engaged viewer. You start to question why things look the way they do, what choices were made, and how those choices affect you. It's a whole new way of seeing the world.
It is. It is. All right. So we've analyzed this image. We've uncovered its secrets. We've become visual design detectives. But there's still one question I can't shake. What's the story behind this furry golem? Like, what's its purpose?
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
The image doesn't give us all the answers. It leaves room for interpretation, for our imaginations to fill in those blanks.
So instead of a complete story, it's not like a starting point.
Yeah,
The spark that ignites our own creativity.
precisely. And it allows us to become part of that creative process, to engage with the image on a deeper level.
Okay, listeners, here's your final challenge. Now knowing what we know about this furry golem, what's the story you would tell? Is it a protector, a lost soul, a force of nature? Let your imagination run wild.
Exactly. There are no wrong answers. It's all about exploring those possibilities and having fun with it.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We started with a single image and ended up exploring art styles, storytelling, the power of design. Who knew a furry golem could be so inspiring?
It just goes to show you that inspiration can come from anywhere. Sometimes the most unexpected things can spark our imaginations and lead us down these fascinating paths.
So keep your eyes open, keep those imaginations fired up, and maybe you'll discover the next furry golem hiding in plain sight. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.